This is the Dr. Katherine Albrecht Show.
Raise a signal flag on a bare hilltop. Call up an army against Babylon. Raise a signal flag on a bare hilltop. Call up an army against Babylon. Wave your hand to encourage them. Wave your hand to encourage them. As they march into the palaces of the high and mighty. I, the Lord, have dedicated these soldiers for this task. Yes, I have called mighty warriors to express my anger. Yes, I have called mighty warriors to express my anger. And they will rejoice when I am exalted.
Hello, good afternoon. Katherine Albrecht here. I am delighted this hour to welcome an old friend back to the program. My guest this hour is Lenore Skenazy. She has not only been a frequent guest on this program in the past, but also has guest hosted this show. She's an extraordinary person. She's an author. She's a mother. And she is the president of Let's Grow, and that is the free-range movement. Her book, Free Range Kids, is a classic for all of us parents who are concerned that maybe there's a little too much helicoptering going on. And with no further ado, let me welcome back my very dear friend, Lenore Skenazy. Lenore, hello.
Catherine, it has been a minute. I forgot that I was guest host way back when.
Can you believe it? I know.
Yeah. Gosh.
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah. I took a 7-year hiatus and kind of fell off the face of the map, but it's great to be back and see some old friends. And you have been certainly not twiddling your thumbs. In the meantime, you've been pretty busy. Before we jump in and talk about letsgrow.org, I want to share with listeners, some of whom may not have ever heard your previous visits on the show or know about Free Range Kids. Tell us the story of how and why you founded Free Range Kids and what the word means.
Oh, great. First of all, I just have to say I'm happy to see you hale and hearty. It does my heart good. Really glad you're back. I didn't realize it had been 7 years. It did feel like, it felt like a lifetime ago.
I think it's been like for us, wonderful. For you and me, like 9 or 10. It's certainly been a while.
Yeah, but you look great. So
thank you. You look great too.
Happy about that. Whatever. So my origin story is that years ago, when my younger son was 9, he had asked me over and over again, he started asking me and my husband if we would take him someplace he's never been before in New York City, where we live, and let him find his own way home by the subway, by the train. And after we talked about it, my husband and I, we decided, okay, we think he's ready. And so, because we spend all our time on the subway, that's how we get around.
No, you're in New York City, right? So this is, so what subway line are we talking? Because I think a lot of people in other parts of the country are like, wait, New York City, that's terrifying. But having been there, I can say Manhattan's a pretty safe place.
Manhattan is really safe. Of the 25 largest cities in America, it's the safest. I have statistics up the wazoo. Anyways, the point is that it is really safe. And we saw this with our own eyes because we took the train every day, and most of the time we were with our kids because that's when they were young. And so the subway line I decided to leave him on was the 6th train, the Green Line. People have been here. And I took him to a place he'd never been before, which was Bloomingdale's, because I'm not a Bloomingdale's stopper. And also because Bloomingdale's sits on top of its own subway station. It's right there. So I told him, today's the day. Goodbye. I wasn't like, he was looking around and wondering, like, where's Mom? It's like, no, today's the day. Yay, he said. And I went one way, and he went down into the basement, which is where the subway is at Bloomingdale's. And then it sounds like it's a tour of, like, retail establishments, but he had to take the train down to 34th Street, which is Macy's Street, and not to shop, just get where he comes out. And then we actually lived in an obscure part of Manhattan where he had to take a bus across, a really slow bus, across 34th Street, and he came into the apartment levitating because he had done something that he was ready to do and that we had trusted him to do it. And I was a newspaper columnist at the time. Sigh, a lot of water under the bridge. And so I wrote a column, Why I Let My 9-Year-Old Ride the Subway Alone. And 2 days later, I was on the Today Show, MSNBC, Fox News, and NPR, defending this decision. And I got the nickname America's Worst Mom, which I kind of wear proudly now. You can actually Google America's Worst Mom, and you'll find me there. But I went on to start the blog Free Range Kids to say that, we've really sort of forgotten how competent kids can be, and that in almost any other era, and to this day in almost any other place, kids are trusted with a lot more independence and responsibility than we give our kids here in the United States. And I don't blame the helicopter parents, because I feel like we have an entire culture. We have a culture that often won't even let your kid get off the bus, the school bus, in the afternoon, unless there's a mom there to walk them home. In Michigan, we had a mom who was writing to us just very upset because her 7-year-old would get off the bus and walk 4 houses home. 4 houses, 1, 2, 3, 4. It took about a minute or 2. But even there, even when she wrote, like, I'll do anything, I'll sign a waiver, just let him, I don't want to have to go outside every day in Michigan in the winter to wait for my son, who's completely competent, to walk home 4 houses. And the school said, no way.
Really?
It's too much of a liability. So anyway, so Free Range Kids was fighting back against a culture that sort of undermined and underestimated kids and sort of made parents feel guilty for trusting their kids, even when they knew their kids were ready to get to another stage. And then 10 years ago, almost, a bunch of people, including Jonathan Haidt from The Anxious Generation, and Peter Gray, who wrote Free to Learn, he's another professor, and Daniel Schuckman, who was chairman of FIRE, which fights for free speech on campus. We all gathered together to start a nonprofit promoting this same idea that kids are more competent, that they need more independence than they've been given. And we call it Let Grow, which is a word that nobody gets. Everybody thinks it's like you let grow or let it grow or let it go. It's Let Grow. Like, that's it. It's, well, we're stuck with it. It's a confusing name, but we are Let Grow.
Let Grow. So, wow. Now, talk about the book, Free Range Kids. I think everybody should own it, read it.
Damn it, they sure should. Where is it? I usually have it next to me. So Free Range Kids is the book I wrote once I started my blog after all the media hoopla about my being so horrible. And it just basically premised that our kids are safer, smarter, and stronger than our culture gives them credit for. And I was a reporter until then, and so I delved. Like, how come my mom didn't go through paroxysms of fear and self-doubt when she let me walk to school starting at age 5 back in the day? This is in suburban Chicago. She wasn't spending the whole time going, oh my God, what have I done? I'm such a bad parent. What if she's, run over, abducted, eaten by a bear, in the 4 blocks between me and Ramona School in Wilmette, Illinois. And so it wasn't that she cared less if I lived or died. And it wasn't that she was an unworried, unanxious mom. I consider myself a worried, anxious mom. But somehow it hadn't become ingrained in us to think of the worst case scenarios every time we take our eyes off our kids. Back then, in fact, the cultural norm was to take your eyes off your kids. And Katherine, I'm sure you remember, laying outside, still what came on?
The street lights. That's when
right.
That was your sign to make your way home, and you might be an hour away, and you would kind of make your way back. We didn't have cell phones. You didn't call. Your mom would sometimes go, "Hey, you're a little late. What happened?" But they wouldn't be calling 911, and we didn't have 911. But they wouldn't be calling the police. They wouldn't be driving around looking for you. Yeah. They would just kind of go, next time get home a little sooner. That was it.
Or here's a watch when the big hand is on the 6. Maybe it's a little hand. But yeah, I think it is a little hand. Anyways, the point is that what has been leached out of us parents is any kind of optimism, any kind of belief in our kids that they're smart, they're curious, they're problem solvers. And it's sort of this cycle, because if you don't believe it, then you think you have to be with your kids. And so then you spend a lot of time with your kids, and you do see all the dumb things that kids do. You know, they take minor risks. They are sometimes mean to each other. They're sometimes rude. They're sometimes wasting a lot of time. They're sometimes pulling up clumps of grass, and you're like, why are you doing that? And so the more you see up close in fine detail how they are spending every second of the day, and sometimes you see it in real life, and sometimes people are, you know, tracking them on their phones, all that information ends up actually having the opposite impact of trusting them. You start to distrust anything they're doing because you see them being suboptimal.
That's a really fascinating point of spending too much time with your kids and actually learning or convincing yourself you can even trust them less because you see what they're up to. My mom had no idea what I was up to, otherwise I probably would have been helicoptered too. All right, Lenore Skenazy is my guest. We'll be right back.
Why are most email programs free? Companies use them as bait to lure people into their system so they can scan their data and sell them to advertisers. It's like a hotel giving out free rooms so they can film people sleeping and then sell the video. You'd never agree to that. StartMail restores your privacy. No one but you sees your sensitive data, and it costs less than a postage stamp a week. StartMail.com. It's email you can trust. Your email is your business, but if it's spied on, hacked, or intercepted, it can fall into the wrong hands. The solution is encryption, a high-tech way to scramble your data so no one can read it. For years, only the technical elite could use this powerful tool until StartMail came along. StartMail not only lets you encrypt the email you send, it encrypts your entire account. Encryption, it's just one more way StartMail.com keeps you safe.
Hi, this is Joe Jaquin, owner of the Patriot Trading Group. I'm sure you're probably aware of the reputations of
Look at the birds. Look at the birds. I tell you not to worry about everyday life. I tell you not to worry about everyday life.
Don't gotta worry about a thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable, on what is right and pure and lovely and admirable. Put into practice all you've learned, and the God of peace will be with you. Then you don't gotta worry about a thing.
Perfect song, Lenore. Peace, relaxing, knowing, just kicking back, knowing that society, God, neighbors, and above all your kid and their common sense are stronger than you think. I remember having you once on the show and we talked about something I had just recently read about, I think this was on Reddit, I don't know, some sort of social media, and it was teenagers, probably college age, young adults, talking about not having been taught how to use a knife and not having been taught how to prepare food in the kitchen. They'd never been allowed, even at age 12 and 13 and 14, oh, that's too sharp for you. You can't touch the knife. Let me cut those vegetables. And then they get off to college. My daughter, who's 19, she has a friend who's also 19, who was never permitted to use the washing machine. She was forbidden by her. Her mother passed away. Her grandmother raised her. Her grandparents raised her, and they said it's too complicated for you. A washing machine, you put the soap, you put the clothes in, you put the soap in, you push the button. And the worst that's going to happen is you're going to wash the red with the whites, and you're going to get some pink towels, but just the level of fear that people have, that I don't know if they were afraid she was going to fall in, that she was going to break it, that she did, but just the sheltering of basic household things. And I remember as a kid, I was cutting vegetables at 6 and 7. I was using sharp knives. I was peeling potatoes on the porch with my grandparents when I was like 6 or 7. I could use a knife. And yes, I had a couple of accidents, not because of that, but I once cut my finger. But it's if we never allow our kids to, well, I'm preaching the choir here, but I'm saying this to the audience. If we never allow our kids to cut their finger, if we never allow our kids to, have any experiences at all, they're going to be like my daughter's poor friend, who does not know how to do a single thing, and she has to ask permission for everything. It's heartbreaking. So what should parents be doing? Now, I also want to bring up what I'm sure everybody listening is thinking. But what about all the things that go wrong? What about all the kids that are abducted? What about all of the dangers out there in the world? And those dangers they're real. And how do we balance that? How do we know the difference between the danger of the washing machine and the danger of true risk and true threats to our kids?
Yeah, those are great questions, especially because it is really hard to get a bead on true risk, because true risk is depressing and sort of everyday-ish, and the sort of fascinating crimes that we hear on the True Crime podcast and on Law and Order and in the movies are the rarest of crimes. And so we start sort of preparing our kids as if they're going to encounter these extraordinarily rare, vanishingly rare, stranger abductions. And yet, you know this as well as I, that really, if you're talking about, the worst stuff that can happen to a kid, generally it's a family member or a close family friend that perpetrates these heinous crimes on kids. So first of all, I would urge listeners to learn the 3 R's, to teach their kids actually, the 3 R's, because these will keep your kid a lot safer than teaching them stranger danger. And the 3 R's are this: recognize that no one can touch you where your bathing suit covers. Okay? They're just not allowed to do that. Recognize. 2 is resist. If somebody is bothering you, I don't care if it's a cousin or an uncle or a teacher, run, scream, punch them in the nuts. It's up to you. You're allowed to. You don't have to be nice. You can be as rude as you want. Resist. And that's already taken care of so much, because if you're a molester, you want a willing victim. You do not want a resisting victim. So you've already made your kids safer by saying resist. And the 3rd R is to report. If somebody tells you, don't tell anyone, it's our little secret, if you tell anyone, I'll hurt you, I'll hurt your mom, prepare them to know that you can always tell me anything that's weird, or even if somebody told you to keep a secret, no, tell me and nothing bad will happen to you or to me. So you just are keeping the lines of communication open, and that is going to keep your kid a lot safer than telling them never talk to a stranger, especially because once in a while, if somebody is bothering them, you want them to run to the stranger and say, hey, I'm going to stand by you until that guy goes by. He's kind of creepy. Or I'm going to run into your store. I'm going to stand at the counter, and I'm going to ask to borrow your phone until that guy goes by.
So review those 4 R's. Recognize that they can't touch
no
you.
One can touch where your bathing suit.
Okay.
Where your bathing suit covers.
Resist.
Right? Scream, punch, you're not, get off of me, get away, I hate you, you're not my dad. Okay? That's resist. And report is tell me, and, you're not going to be grounded, I'm not going to be mad at you, weird things happen in the world, I'm your mom, I love you, just tell me, and I'll help you through it. We'll make it through, nobody will get hurt.
Wow. So that right there, I think, if you're a helicopter parent and you don't teach your kids those three things, they're probably at more risk than if you're giving them more independence, trusting them more, and teaching them just those three basic, simple things, which are so crucially important. And I know, what is it, 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys, but it's probably much higher for both, are sexually abused or attacked or assaulted or harmed in some way as children. And as I think about all the stories that I've heard, any one of those three, the recognize, the resist, and the report, didn't happen. Like one of those three things or all of those three things didn't happen and allowed the abuse to continue on and become a real issue. I want to talk, you said something interesting about the stranger danger. So have you heard about the Gen Z stare? The Gen Z stare.
Stare? Like looking?
S-T-A-R-E, okay, so you've probably encountered it if you didn't know the name for it, but it came up in social media probably about 6 months ago, and it became just, everybody recognized it and it became a thing. So you're talking to
look it up. I never heard of it.
Gen Z stare. So you're talking to someone who's maybe 19 or 20, and you talk to them and they do not answer you, they just look at you. Like they're trying to parse your words, like they're trying to figure out what you said. Or maybe they're just looking at you and it feels like they're looking at you with contempt and it's like beneath them to even answer you. That Gen Z stare, which people have encountered, in fact, somebody was talking about a waiter came up to them to take their order and didn't even say, hi, my name is, Jake, and I'll be your server today. I want to take your order. They just came up and stood there and they're like, and it left it up to the customers to actually place their order. I was in a Sally's beauty store and I was talking about the Gen Z stare. I'm a radio host, so I talk to everybody. I was talking to the lady, probably in her 40s, who ran the store. And I had just done a show and the Gen Z stare was on my mind. And I asked her, is this something you encounter? She says, oh, do I ever? I hire people to come in and, 19, 20, 18 years old to work in the store as the cashier, and they can't talk to people. Like, I'll say to them, you need to go up to the customer and say, hi, how are you today? Or just greet them when they walk in the door. They're like, I can't do that. Much less walk up to them and say, can I help you find anything? Or even respond if they're asked to find anything. And she said, finally, one day she just said, what is going on? And the girl that she was talking to said, I suffer from crippling social anxiety. She even had a term for it. So people had talked to her before about it and diagnosed it, I guess.
I hear.
Crippling social anxiety, and because that's become sort of their self-identity, rather than break out of it, that's just their diagnosis, and that's just what I have. But going a little deeper, I'll send you after the show, I'm going to send you a Reddit thread that I found so interesting. It was Ask Older People, that's a subreddit. And a young person, Gen Z, went into Ask Older People and asked this question. Are you older guys just lonely? Why do you feel such a need to talk to us? And everybody who was in their, 50s, 60s, older people all said, what are you talking about? That's like what we always did. You get to a new town, you're like, what are the good restaurants around here? We're not talking to you because we're lonely. We're talking to you because we're both together on a park bench, or we're both together waiting in line, and why not talk to you? Here is the thing, and I wanted to bring this up when what you talked about was stranger danger. Two things happened to Gen Z. They were told, don't talk to strangers. So they did not make the distinction, like you're making, between strangers who are really creepy and strangers who were just friendly people that you want to talk to that are part of the world.
Right.
So that's the first part. And then the second part is they lost 2 essential years of socialization in their middle school years, their high school years, their formative years during COVID, when if you were going to interact with somebody, you did it like this. Because you were watching your teacher. Like yeah, right. You did. You had a mask over your mouth. You couldn't see their expressions. Yeah. And you were passively watching your classes. You were watching your teacher, because everybody was doing remote schooling. And so it wasn't that you're talking to your friends and you're passing notes and whispering. You're sitting there like a zombie staring at a screen, and they got trained to do that. So this whole world of don't talk to strangers, I think, has come back to bite us, this message. because now they resent being spoken to. They're like, what is wrong with you? Don't you see? I just want to, why do you feel such a need to talk to me? I'm like, dang. So I love the idea of your 3 R's rather than stranger danger, because it has, I don't know, that plus COVID has just come back to bite us. Look it up. I think you'll find it very interesting.
No, I wrote it down. Yeah, it looks like Gen 2 store in my terrible writing, but I know it means Gen Z there. And so I was going to give one very reassuring statistic.
Please.
Because the fear of strangers persists not just in the kids, but in us adults. Wait, is that the music coming? Should I?
Yeah, it is. It is.
For when we come back?
Is.
Here, I'll ask the question.
Write it down, because I always forget what I'm going to talk about during the breaks. So make a note.
All right, I'm just.
And we'll come back. We'll pick that back up.
I'm going to ask the listeners. How long would you have to keep your kid outside for them to be likely to be kidnapped?
Okay.
That's the question.
I like it. We'll get the statistic. Okay. All right, we'll be right back. Thanks, Lenore.
Great.
Is your email box overrun with spam? With a StartMail account, you'll never have to give your real email address to a stranger again. Online shopping, newsletter subscriptions, getting that 30% off coupon, they all need your email address. But with StartMail, you can invent new addresses or aliases linked to your inbox behind the scenes and give those out to people while keeping your real address hidden. It's just one more protection from StartMail.com.
Red alert, Yahoo users. You've fallen in a trap that could ruin your life if you keep using Yahoo.
You consent to sharing all data in your email account with our AI providers, and you grant us a perpetual license to use, display, publish, and publicly distribute your content in any medium known now or in the future, and to let other users access and distribute it as well.
Yikes. It's time to switch to StartMail, the only email that's AI-free and private by design. StartMail.com. Use promo code JD.
Therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time.
Oh, okay. Let Lenore know, too. You're not going out over the airwaves. I don't think so. Yeah, you can do that. That's good. Can you also go to leggrow.org and queue up the little video and play the audio when I ask you for it?
Casting all your care upon him, casting all your worries upon him, for he cares for you. He cares for you. He cares. He cares for you. Stay alert, watch out for your great enemy. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. Stand firm against him and be strong in your faith, casting all your worries upon him, casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. He cares for you. He cares. He cares for you. Oh. So after you have suffered a little while, He will restore, support, and strengthen you. And He will place you on a firm foundation. All power to Him forever. 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 All power to Him forever.
I have no sound. All right, well, I'm back with my guests, but I have literally no sound, so I am not sure. Hang on. There we go. Lenore, can you hear me? JD, we have no sound. I know Facebook can hear me, but I can't hear anything. I know we had to reboot. Apologies to Facebook viewers and listeners if you can hear me. We are, hang on, having technical difficulties. All right, well, I know Lenore is there, but she can't hear me, and I can't hear the station. All right, sit tight. We're going to figure this out. Glitch. There we go. All right, so let me make sure we got everything. Okay, good. All right. thanks for being a good sport through all of that. Okay.
No problem.
So before the break, you were going to give us the answer to the trivia question: how long would your kids have to stay outside to be abducted by a stranger? And I'm sure most parents are going, I don't know, an hour. What's the answer?
Well, first of all, I have to give the caveat that it is to make it statistically likely that your child would be kidnapped by a stranger in a law and order type kidnapping, nefarious guy, van, etc. And the answer is 750,000 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, what? 750,000
Yeah, wait, what?
Years.
Years. Yeah. And they're not really kids after the first 100,000. I was going to abduct him, but he looked like a grape. He looked like a raisin. No thanks. He's like King Tut.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so that's probably how long you'd have to stand outside to be hit by lightning, I'm guessing. In fact, you'd probably have to stand out less than, I think it's less.
Yeah, I think lightning is a little more common because lightning is usually your whole life long, and here we are trying to talk about as a kid and how long would they be. The point is, it is a vanishingly rare, thank God, crime, but it's not vanishingly rare on television, on the internet, on podcasts. I just read that 42% of all American adults are listening to true crime podcasts. Why? Why? It's just depressing. Right?
Wow.
Yeah.
And that gives you a really skewed view of reality. Our generation had, we were outside and there were occasionally some creeps. I encountered them, you encountered them, but the creeps did not abduct us. The creeps just said creepy things, and we just said, yeah, whatever, dude. And then we went to either be with our friends or laughed at them or went off and found other people. For the most part, creeps are going to be creeps. There are always going to be people the kind of guys who, like in construction sites, who whistle at girls as they walk by. There's going to be weird people saying weird, stupid stuff. But in my experience and that of my friends, it never, ever, never, ever, never, ever went beyond a creepy comment or a creepy feeling where you're just like, I gotta get away from this person. No one I am aware of was ever abducted by, touched by, attacked by, or in any way harmed by a stranger ever. And I'm thinking about growing up in the 1970s when we were out riding our bikes and we were out, miles from home, and we were out in the woods, we were out everywhere. There are creepy people, but the kind of creepy people who are thinking of actually grabbing someone and abducting them, that's, as you said, vanishingly rare. So, wow. And getting back to what you said earlier, just on this topic, however, pretty much everyone I know was harmed by someone in their personal circle, an uncle, a cousin.
Yeah, anyone who's harmed,
Right.
Yeah.
So I would say that out of my friends and my family members and extended people that I know, that it's more than 1 in 3. It's probably the majority of us were harmed by someone in our circle who our parents were perfectly comfortable having us be around because no one knew that uncle whatever or cousin whatever or so-and-so down the street or the babysitter's boyfriend or whoever was a creep. And not just a creep, but an actual abuser. And so I think in all of those cases, as I think about, and I went through, in my doctoral cohort at Harvard, we had 23 people in our cohort. It was taught by Carol Gilligan.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, Carol Gilligan taught our cohort. And in that cohort, she was on kind of a Freud-Breuer thing where she was going back and looking at the early days of Freud, who said that all of his hysterical female patients reported having been raped, abused, harmed, sexually assaulted by a male family member. And initially he believed it. Now, and back then hysteria took the form of, not being mute or being unable to move a limb or, certain things.
Or fainting, right? Yeah.
Fainting, yeah. But they called it hysteria because they didn't have another word for it. Now we would call it PTSD from child abuse. What was interesting in that pro seminar is that Freud believed that for many, many years. And then there were so many women coming to him with this condition, so many hysterical women reporting sexual abuse in childhood, that he invented the entire Oedipus complex and the Electra complex and this idea that it couldn't possibly be real, that it must be some deep-seated psychological fantasy that they all had. And as a result, the 20th century has labored under this delusion of all of these weird complexes and sexual complexes that kids have for their opposite sex parent, when in reality it was just child abuse. And so it just the realization that society, he recognized it and wrote a lot about it at first and then said, I was all wrong. It couldn't be real. So looking back on that, this isn't women, in the Victorian era saying I was abducted as I was, walking to school. This is children saying family members harmed me. People we trusted harmed me. That looking at the harm, the risk ratio that you're talking about, 75,000 years to be abducted by a stranger, but 1 in 3, 1 in 2, maybe even 2 out of 3 being harmed by someone who is trusted. And so for parents, if you need to be afraid of something, don't be afraid of the washing machine, don't be afraid of the knives, don't be afraid of the subway, don't be afraid of your kids playing in the front yard. Be afraid of your kids not reporting to you that someone in your trusted inner circle is not trustworthy. And that's where I think your 3 R's would solve the problem, because in every one of those cases, had someone said simply, no, you can't, or screamed or reported, none of those things would have gone as far as they did. So thank you. I think you've done us a massive service just with that 3 R's right there.
I got that from an old Boy Scout leader, so that was not me. I wanted to tell you, there was one mom I spoke with, and I don't know if our audio is working or weird again. I just heard some strange things.
Yeah.
One mom I talked to, we've passed laws in 12 states that say neglect is when you put your child in obvious and serious danger, not just any time you take your eyes off them, like walk to the store or climb a tree, or, there's home alone when you're running to pick up, some milk from the grocery store. Anyways, one of the moms who testified in Virginia in favor of our law, where it passed, said that when she was a kid, she did have an uncle who was horrible, and the only way she escaped was by going outside and climbing a tree.
There you go. Right. So yeah, the police are probably just grabbing him off the street and sticking him right back in the home with the abuser. Wow. Well, you've opened my eyes to something. This is really, thank you. I'm going to be thinking about this a lot.
That's the point of your podcast.
It's wonderful. It's so good. All right, Lenore Skenazy, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You will experience God's peace, the peace of God. Then you will experience God's peace, the peace of God, which exceeds anything we can understand, anything we can understand, which exceeds anything we can understand, anything we can understand. His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. Oh, His peace will guard your hearts and minds as you live in Christ Jesus. Thank Him for all He's done.
Sweeter than honey from the comb are your words, they're finer than gold, the rarest treasure of my life. Only your word could make my spirit shine. So may the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, my God. May every movement of my mouth be pleasing before your sight. Keep me from secret sin, keep me from selfishness. May the meditations of my heart be pleasing to you, my God.
All right, we're back. Lenore, this is fascinating. I totally want to talk about your website. Have so many things to say about kids, so many things to say about the work you've been doing. But this topic, I think, has really captured people's attention. And I want to read a text that we received from the 308 area code. Katherine, I have heard reports that up to 800,000 kids go missing yearly in the USA. Can you speak to that? Are these kids being grabbed from the subway and out of their front yards?
No, I've heard that statistic too. I think it's 400,000. Maybe it is 800,000. Either way, it's an enormous number, and it is terrifying. So I delved into it. And actually, if you go to the website Let Grow, that difficult name, letgrow.org, and you have to scroll all the way to the bottom. There's something called crime stats, and you can click on it. And I'm just going to paraphrase it now, which is that the FBI classifies as a missing person anyone who has been missing more than an hour. And then they did a study in the 90s, and then they repeated it in the mid-2000s, and then they repeated it again recently to see, well, who are these missing people? And they gave some examples. A kid who got off the bus and went in the wrong direction. Oh my God, he's missing. No, he's just a couple blocks away. A pregnant teen who ran away from home. Yes, she's missing, but she was not abducted. A kid who was at home. The parents called frantically. They thought that she was at the beach, and it turned out she'd come home early and went to bed. And so they thought that she had drowned, and she was in her room asleep. And it goes on and on and on. And the FBI and the Department of Justice, NISMART, whatever that stands for, did a study of this, and they concluded that somewhere between 100 and 300 kids a year go missing in much more dire circumstances, and of those, 90% come home. And of those, the most recent year that we have the literal number, which was maybe 10 years ago, it was 105 or 110. 30% of them weren't even reported missing by their parents because they lived in such chaotic circumstances. So the kids who do go missing are usually runaways or taken in custodial disputes between divorced parents. And this number is it's either shared because people believe that it's 800,000 kids who are taken by strangers in vans promising to help find the puppy or whatever, or by organizations that need donations and they want to scare you. I mean, I don't really know why this number gets repeated when it has no reflection on the scary picture that ends up in our brain. So I can understand how he's heard that number. But
that's interesting, and I wouldn't have expected that, but now that you say it, it makes perfect sense. It's kind of like the deaths from COVID, when if you were in the hospital and you died because you were hit by a truck, but you also had COVID, then that was a COVID death, and so it got counted there. Or, you know, the statistics get pretty mangled. Let me speak though about actual child pedophilia, human trafficking rings. And I can speak to this a little bit because I've done a deep dive on the Epstein files. Let me say that the 3 R's would have rescued the kids who were trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. Every single last one of them would have been rescued by the 3 R's. They were not, even though they were trafficked, even though they were underage. Some of these children were 12 and 13. These children were lured by he had a whole ring where he would pay each of his victims $200 or $300 per new victim they would bring in. And so these girls would go back to their middle schools and back to their high schools, and they would say, hey, you want to make some quick money? There's this old guy, and if you go over here, you can make $200, or and when you try, and these were oftentimes very poor young women from very, very disadvantaged households, single mothers. And so when they went expecting, no one was told you're going to go and have sex with strangers. No one was told that. They were told you can be a massage therapist and you can get a license and you could have a career. And he even gave them, sent them through massage lessons and whatever under the pretext that that's what they were doing. But at the moment when they were giving a massage and someone began touching them, then right there, recognize, resist, scream. And if you can't get away, when you get home, the very first thing is you say to your mom, this happened to me. And his pedophilia ring would have been shut down so much quicker, so much faster, had those girls been educated about those 3 things. Not one of them was abducted out of their, history class. But in their history class, another girl was saying, hey, psst, come with me, and, blah, blah, blah. And when they got there, bad things happened. They were not abducted, not a single, as far as I can tell, and I've done, like I said, a pretty deep dive. It's pretty ugly. But not one of the hundreds and hundreds, it is estimated between 300 and 500 children were victims of Jeffrey Epstein. Not one of them was grabbed off the street. None of them. He eventually got to the point where he was bringing in offering modeling jobs to teenagers in Russia. And they would think they had this great modeling job in the US, and they would come to the US, and when they got here, then these bad things would be happening. Once again, though, you think it's a modeling job, you recognize when someone's doing something bad to you, you scream, and then you report them, and you get the heck out of there. But because they didn't, and they prey upon the fact that young women, and you and I have both, been there, you don't want to raise a fuss. You don't want to make people uncomfortable. You don't, even though something horrible is happening, you feel a responsibility to kind of do the right thing and not rock the boat and not make people upset. And, it's terrible that we would rather remain silent than actually stand up for ourselves and defend ourselves and make other people uncomfortable. But I think teaching our kids that it's okay to make a scene. It is perfectly okay to make other people uncomfortable. You are not the problem. They are the problem. And that lesson right there is crucial. So if 800,000 young kids, let's just say for a moment that this listener was correct, and there are child trafficking, pedophilia, human trafficking rings all over the world that abduct 800, or not abduct because that's the wrong word, but ensnare 800,000 children a year. And that's not the case, but let's say it was. They're not being grabbed walking, playing in their front yard. They're not being grabbed walking down the street. They are being manipulated in these other ways and found in other ways. And I just want to clarify that as a parent, I can say my kids are now grown, but I was terrified for my kids. I was afraid to let them go in the bathroom at McDonald's alone. I was afraid to, because we have this image, and if we know that Jeffrey Epstein's are out there and his, cadre of horrible guys with him, and we know that there are people who prey on children, we start thinking Jeffrey Epstein is hiding in the bathroom at McDonald's. And that's not how it happens. It's not where it happens. So thank you for giving us a little bit of clarity. I do want to say that it probably is the case that there are many, 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 many children in this country who are being harmed and abused in this way. I think Jeffrey Epstein gave us just a little window into that, and that's horrifying. But I think sheltering our kids, think about my daughter's friend who couldn't use the washing machine or use a knife. If she fell into a Jeffrey Epstein type situation, would not have the self-confidence to scream and report and speak up and defend herself. So in a way, by sheltering our kids so much, we're almost making them unable to protect themselves. What are your thoughts here?
I think that by sheltering them from playing outside, something as simple as that, or walking to school unless you live in an extremely dangerous neighborhood, or running an errand, or going to the store and getting the food and bringing it home, what you're sheltering them from is growing incompetence to become the people like us, who can go to the store and can shop and feel like we are part of the world and we're trusted. And, there's this giant wave of anxiety in young people today, and I could certainly understand it from the girl who's not even allowed to push a button on a washing machine. But it's also the kids who are told, "Oh, honey, I'll handle that for you," or "That's too much," or "Stick by me." University of Michigan did a study 2 years ago, and they asked parents, "Is independence important for kids?" And the majority said it sure is. And they were asking parents of kids age, I think, 5 to 12, but I'm just going to talk about the kids who are 9 to 12 or 8 to 12. And they asked them, well, have you ever done these things? Let them walk around the neighborhood on their own? No. Walk to school? No. And then, actually it wasn't walk to school, but one of the questions was, have you let them go to another aisle at the store when you're there shopping? And 50% said no. And if your kid who's not even told that you can go and get the cereal while mom gets the bananas, it's going to be hard to be a confident kid anywhere.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, I feel like we just got started. I could talk to you for hours. Can you come back? Can we do a part 2 and focus on some of the other issues that aren't dealing with child endangerment? I'd love to have you back. All right. And if you ever get a chance to guest host, I miss one show a month. And if you ever want to come back on, I'd love to have you. have you do it.
We'll consider it.
Awesome. Lenore Skenazy, your website, letgrow, letgrow.org, letgrow.org. Free Range Kids is the book, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being my guest this hour. I'm glad we're back in touch. All right, blessings, and thanks, listeners. We